Many women have romanticized Korean men, believing that everything they see in Korean dramas is true. Some have even traveled to Korea just to meet a Korean guy. And that hasn't ended well at all.
Eu tô acabada, tô destruída. Não consigo dormir, não consigo comer.
In this video, I'm going to explain why Korean dramas are lying to you, why Korean men aren't the princes you imagine, and why Korean women aren't exactly like they appear in those dramas either. I'll break down what's real and what's not in these romantic series. Stick around until the end, because today's video is going to be pretty controversial. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the time. Over the past few months and years, Korea has gained a ton of attention in cinema and on streaming platforms. It's almost impossible not to know shows like Squid Game or the endless lineup of K-dramas. In fact, I'm currently watching one and honestly, they all kind of feel the same to me. But one thing these dramas have really drilled into people's heads is the idea that Korean men are romantic, polite, caring, like modern-day Prince Charmings. They wear makeup, get Botox, and seem like perfect men with deep emotions. That image has quickly become the new global standard of what a man should be. Now, it might sound silly to some of you, but this fantasy of a perfect romance and this new ideal of the perfect man has already pushed many women to leave their home countries in search of that so-called drama-like love. And yes, that's exactly how they describe it. You might think it's cute or sweet, just someone chasing a fairy tale romance. But the truth is, most of the time, it ends badly. In some cases, it even puts people in danger. Some women have risked their lives chasing this fantasy. It's a serious issue. Practically overnight, the standard of what makes a man attractive has shifted. No longer is it the sweaty, muscular, rugged Rambo type from 90s action films. Now, the new ideal is basically a generic K-pop singer, or just anyone who looks East Asian. But getting back to the topic, this obsession that's developed around Korean men, and Asian men in general, is what I call the drama illusion. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the men in these shows are always portrayed with standardized personalities and appearances, carefully designed to seem perfect. Basically, they're everything women have always dreamed of. What's concerning is that many women who watch these shows have started to genuinely believe that all Korean men, or even all Asian men, are like that. But the truth is, there's no such thing as a standard person, and no one is the same just because they're from the same country. And that's valid. But here's the real issue. The way Koreans are portrayed in dramas is often the opposite of how many actually are in real life. And I'm going to prove it. What's sad is that many women never take the time to find that out. In April 2022, a Brazilian mother named Tamaris Christine Lima Rodrigues came home after work and discovered that her 6-year-old daughter, Loise, had gone missing. The person responsible was her ex-partner, Sang-Win Kim, a South Korean man who had used the excuse of visiting his daughter to take her away to South Korea. But the story didn't start there. Sang-Win already had a history of violence against Tamaris, and he had even been arrested in 2018 for a similar incident. Despite this, he managed to flee Brazil while out on provisional release. He now lives with the child around 300 kilometers from Seoul, while Tamaris is caught in an exhausting legal battle. The South Korean justice system granted custody to the father without notifying her or giving her the chance to defend herself. In August 2023, Tamaris traveled to South Korea for a custody hearing, but during the proceedings, her lawyer failed to properly represent her. And during the meeting, her daughter, who had once been very close to her, showed signs of parental alienation and even refused to hug her. This case is a harsh reminder of how different reality can be from the fantasy sold by Korean dramas and the country's entertainment industry. Another case is that of Jacqueline Bastos, a 34-year-old Brazilian woman from Santarém. She met a Korean man named John Lee in March 2022 through a dating app. After months of chatting online, they finally met in person in Fortaleza. Charmed by what seemed to be a kind and romantic man, she agreed to marry him and moved to South Korea. At first, everything seemed perfect, but just 2 weeks after arriving in the country, his behavior changed drastically. John became controlling, restricted her food, monitored her phone, and at times acted aggressively. Jacqueline reported that he locked her inside, forbade her from going out, and cut off all her communication with the outside world. Not speaking Korean and knowing no one there, she found herself completely isolated and vulnerable. Things got even worse when her husband threw her out of the house without any money or resources. In a video posted to Instagram on December 2nd, 2023, Jacqueline shared her experience and asked for help to return to Brazil. Her story caught the attention of a Brazilian influencer living in South Korea who organized a virtual fundraiser. Thanks to that, Jacqueline was eventually able to make her way back to Brazil, spending some time in São Paulo before reuniting with her family in Santarém. So far, neither the South Korean nor Brazilian authorities have launched an official investigation into the case. And these stories aren't limited to romantic relationships with Koreans. Many people also idealize South Korea as a flawless country, thanks to K-dramas, K-pop, and social media. Some women travel there chasing a dream, only to find themselves victims of something much darker. That's exactly what happened to 7 women in 2019, who were tricked by a criminal network operating in South Korea. These women traveled to South Korea with the promise of launching a career in K-pop, the globally popular Korean music genre with millions of fans around the world. But when they arrived, the reality was very different. They were forced into nightlife work and endured a real nightmare for weeks. The perpetrators, 5 Korean men, had contacted the victims through social media in early July. They offered round-trip plane tickets and promised career opportunities as singers, models, or entertainers. The women, aged between 20 and 30, accepted the offer and flew to South Korea that same month. But once they arrived, their passports were confiscated, their return flights canceled, and they were confined to accommodations in the cities of Goyang and Paju in Gyeonggi Province. There, they were sold to nightlife establishments and threatened with retaliation if they tried to escape or speak out. The men claimed the women had to work off the cost of the trip and warned that going to the police would only make things worse. The case came to light on August 17th, when one of the victims managed to contact her country's embassy in Seoul and ask for help. The embassy quickly reached out to the Korean authorities, who launched an immediate investigation. As a result, all 7 women were rescued and taken to a protection center for foreign victims. The 5 men involved in the scheme were arrested and are currently awaiting trial. Unfortunately, this wasn't an isolated case. South Korea still faces serious challenges when it comes to protecting women's rights and addressing domestic violence. In many ways, it remains behind on these issues. The image shown in Korean dramas, where men are always respectful, loving, and gentle. Of course, this doesn't mean all Korean men are abusive or violent. That always depends on the character of the individual, not just their culture or nationality. But when a country and its judicial system don't seem to be effective in these cases, and often favor men, what do you think really happens? Do you think many don't take advantage of the situation, especially when their partners are foreigners? This isn't just an opinion. There are studies and hard data. Even Korean women themselves constantly criticize the men in their country. According to studies, over 80% of women in South Korea no longer want to get married, and many cite the risk of violence as the main reason. Many Korean women say they're afraid to even use public restrooms, as the country faces an alarming number of virtual crimes targeting women, especially those involving hidden cameras. Some women live in constant fear of discovering secret recording devices in bathrooms, with the footage later being used to blackmail them or shared online without their consent. It's a disturbing reality, but unfortunately, it's quite common in South Korea. This fear is similar to what many Western women feel when walking alone at night. In short, South Korea can be an especially difficult country to be a woman in. Thousands, even millions, of women have reported cases of abuse or harassment from partners or superiors, only to be ignored or dismissed by the authorities. In some cases, women couldn't even count on the support of their own families. And for foreign women, the situation is no different. the cases I mentioned earlier are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the challenges and risks of relationships and marriage in South Korea. Korean dramas have created a dangerous fantasy when taken too far. They portray idyllic romances with men who are always kind, romantic, attentive, and willing to sacrifice everything for love. And while these stories can be charming, and I'll admit, I enjoy them too, it's important to remember they're pure fiction. In real life, relationships are far more complicated. When women start chasing that drama-style love, they open themselves up to serious disappointments because life rarely plays out like fantasy. Korean pop culture, especially dramas and K-pop, has painted an idealized image of perfect relationships and the perfect man. But this idealization doesn't just affect women looking for that kind of partner. It also puts enormous pressure on Korean women themselves. Many feel they have to find someone who fits that mold and turn it into reality. This pursuit of a Prince Charming can lead to poor decisions, like moving to another country for someone they barely know. The problem is that this obsession often blinds people to red flags that are right in front of them. And too often, those decisions lead to heartbreak, or worse, dangerous situations like the ones I've shared. No drama is going to show you that side of the story, because the purpose of these shows isn't to educate, it's to entertain. But this idealization is reaching extreme levels. In some cases, just being a man who even vaguely looks Asian is enough for some women to become obsessed, whether online or in real life. It's a kind of collective hysteria that shows just how risky it can be to idealize a culture or a type of person too much. If you're a fan of dramas and dream about finding a love like the ones you see on screen, that's okay. Dreaming is human, and there's nothing wrong with being inspired by stories. But don't forget, real life isn't a drama. You can't expect people to act like the characters you see on TV. This isn't about a country, a culture, or a look. It's about real people with both strengths and flaws. And to the men out there, the same advice applies. Be mindful of stereotypes and unrealistic expectations that come from media and social networks. These illusions can also trap you and prevent you from forming real, healthy relationships. Always stay grounded. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.